Okay, so this is the second video in this two-part video about the Android Automotive system. If you haven't watched the first one yet, you can watch it after or you can watch it now. It doesn't really matter. But in the first video, I covered the main car interactive options, and the second video is going to cover primarily the Google-based functionality and a bit to do with preconditioning and the climate control. So we'll get started, and yeah, hope you enjoy the video. Please like and subscribe, that'll be great. And I hope this is useful to people who have the car or people who are thinking about getting the Polestar 2. So in this second part of the two-part video on the Android Automotive system, I'm going to cover the Google-based functionality of it, and specifically things like the maps and the different settings and the apps available. So on this page, this is the main page you get if you press the home button. You've got maps at the top left and a phone at the bottom left. I've got Spotify in the bottom right, and then driver performance at the top right. So the map functionality is really good in the Polestar. You've got three quick features down here, and the first one is the access to chargers. So this will give you a nice overview of charging facilities available, and it's particularly useful if you're doing a longer journey or you're going somewhere and you think you need to charge, you haven't really decided where you're going to stop. You can use this to quickly find locations. So say for example, it's given me position number 1 here. If I click on this, it will show Charge Master charging station, and that is it's got a fast, and it shows your speeds here. So fast trader mode, CCS, medium type 2, which is really useful. And if I go back, for example, and choose a different one, let's try number 3 here. It says slow, and it says that that's in Burgess Hill, and that's a slow type 2, 7 kilowatts. So the information that's presented to you is really useful. And I have used it once or twice already to quickly find a charger close to where I am, to go in and get a quick top up. So if I go back to the main page, press this food button, it gives you a selection of food-based options. So that's really nice. And then let's see, driver performance. Actually, this is one of my least favorite features, and I've contacted Polestar about this. Hopefully other people have as well. That data is so bad. That's a massive screen, and all it shows you is instantaneous consumption, which is averaged over 60 seconds on the left, and then the average. And this is like another trip computer in addition to the one that you've already got on your main driver display. But it's really not that useful. I think there could be much better ways of showing graphs and more detailed information than this particular way of displaying it. And then the phone functionality, that works really well via Bluetooth. So you can put favorites there, recents, contacts, keypad for standard dialing. It's the usual kind of stuff you see in most cars these days. And then down at the bottom right, that's access to Spotify. And yeah, I mean, excuse the random stuff on here, but all kinds of music from some of my own to children and yeah, everybody in the whole house listening to a variety of different things. But yeah, Spotify is great to have on here. It has some limitations. I find both Spotify and YouTube Music to be quite frustrating, but I'll talk about that again in a minute. And then down at the bottom, this is where you've got your air conditioning and climate control settings. So I have my heated steering wheel on at the moment, single press to turn that off, and then heated seat below that. But now watch this. This is something that's always bothered me, and it did get better with a software update, but it still happens. So if I press this once, I get full. But if I press it again, I get that, and again, I get another one, and that's no big deal. But if you want to quickly do it, so say I think, well, I only want a little bit of heat on, so I'm going to press it 3 times quickly. Okay, it worked perfectly. Let's try the heated seat. Worked perfectly. But it doesn't always. It's very, very random. Sometimes you press it and it lags really badly, and eventually it updates. But it's inconsistent, so it sort of sucks you into that thinking, oh, well, I'll just quickly press it 3 times to get to the lowest setting, and it doesn't work. And then other times you don't do it and it does work, so that's kind of annoying. And then on the left side, you've got just the passenger's heated seat. And in the middle, you've got temperature. Now, this is not an obvious spot, but if you tap the temperature and you unlink it, you can independently set the temperatures on both sides. So that does exist, but it isn't that obvious, and you can put them back together if you want. On the left, you've got auto, and by tapping on that, you've got your main climate display. So on the left hand side, you can see AC, max defrost, recirculation, and rear defroster. You've also got hard buttons for the rear defroster and the max defroster as well, which are just by the play and pause button below the screen. And then you've got auto, and you can control how you want the air to be distributed. But auto is really good. It doesn't blow too aggressively through any particular part of the car. It seems to work better than almost any other car I've had. Like, a lot of cars I find like they blow too much air to your feet or too much to your face, and then your feet get cold. This is really well balanced. Down here you've got now you can, this is nice, you can leave it in auto, but you can increase the air speed. So you can increase the flow if you want. If you like a flow of more air, but you want it in auto, then you can do that. Some cars I've had don't allow that. As soon as you increase your airflow, it goes out of auto mode, and then you're no longer in auto, which is annoying. But this one lets you stay in auto, but increase your airflow, which is nice. This clean zone down here at the bottom, this is, if it's blue, that means you're doing all the right things to have nice, clean, filtered air inside the car. If you open the window, the clean zone will change, and it's just telling you that, yeah, you're letting in outside air, and there you go, it's gone white, so that's telling you it's no longer getting you the cleanest internal air that you can get. And when you close the window, it will go blue again. There we go, blue. So moving on to parking. Now this I've mentioned in other videos. We have the ability to schedule or start preheating and cooling straight away. So I'm going to turn the schedule off, but you can add multiple different timers, and you can set them for different days. You can set them to repeat weekly. This is a really good feature, but again, it's kind of only there because people are waiting for an app. What you really want to be able to do is control all of this via an app on your phone. So to be able to quickly start at preheating, or to be able to set schedules and things like that on a phone-based app. On the top left, I've got Google Maps, and you can move these things around if you want. So you could set things up the way you like them and have different apps in different boxes. So Google Maps, I think I've kind of already mentioned this, but it's worth having a quick look at what you have in Google Maps. So this is standard stuff. If you select in the box there, let's say I want to go to, I don't know, Waitrose in Haywards Heath. Yeah, I mean, this is just Google Maps. 9 minutes, 3.4 miles, 11:55 I'll get there, and 69% on the battery. So we can then zoom in and see lots of usual Google type stuff with the traffic here. Down at the bottom we've got settings. So in the settings menu you can turn on and off traffic, guidance, audio, route options, edit your home and work, and then privacy settings. Route options, avoid motorways, tolls and ferries. The audio, you can mute traffic alerts only and unmute. And let's see, edit home and work. If I get rid of this and close that off there, and I go to the settings, we can go offline maps. So I have a map here that covers that area of the country. It's 262 megabytes. I can update it if I want. And you can download additional offline maps if you like. So you can have auto download, but you could select different parts of the country. You could select parts of Europe. A really useful feature, because if you do lose signal for some reason, it's nice to be able to have some kind of map information. So yeah, it pretty much covers all of the settings down at the bottom. You can speak to it if you want, and then you've got your own. I've got myself signed in there on Google, which is cool. That's about it really. Categories, restaurants, supermarkets, coffee shops. It's good stuff, but it's all what you'd expect really from Google, and it works really well. So heading back to this page, we've got Google Assistant. That's just Google, and I'm going to get rid of that. So let's go back here. Driver performance we've already discussed. The phone we've already discussed. And at the bottom right, I've got my music and audio settings. So you've got the radio app, which in reality I never really use because I don't really listen to the radio much, but I know a lot of people will. So yeah, this is where you can have a look at your radio stations and save your favorites in that menu over there. And you've got settings up here, which you can change the usual stuff that you would with radio. So Bluetooth media player. Now, if you want to play music from, oh look, yeah, Tesla Bjorn down here. I've been watching his videos this morning. You've got your Bluetooth settings, and you can run music off your phone or whatever Bluetooth device you want to run it from. So say, for example, you have an iPhone, an Apple product, and you wanted to use music from there, you can just do it via the Bluetooth. It's kind of annoying, I guess, if you've got Apple Music, because you can't do it through the display, but you can at least run it through your phone, so it's no major problem. It doesn't stop you using it. And then I've got YouTube Music and Spotify on here. Both of them work really well, but they both have some issues, and it's a little frustrating. So have a look at YouTube Music, for example, and again, there's some really random stuff in here, but yeah, we've got downloads there, so that you can download music, but it's not the most intuitive way of operating. So I'll show you an example. If I go to albums and I select like this album, for example, it will start playing the music. But now look at this. If I want to see the track listing, there I can have a look at the track listing. That's great. But let's try this. If I type in the Beatles, so I get a top result, the artist, click on that, it just starts playing. It just picks a song and it creates a queue. But that's not what I wanted to see. What I wanted to see was the album. So, okay, I want to go back now and have a look. Right, how do I... Okay, top result, the Beatles. All right, I've got songs, I've got videos, albums, but there's only 3 albums. And then I've got playlists, and then I've got... But how do I see the full list of Beatles albums? So you can see my... that's kind of annoying. Sometimes when I look for music, I often want to look for an artist and I want to see the list of albums and pick an album. I don't always remember in my mind exactly what album. And while you're driving, you can't really be typing in album names and things. So that's kind of annoying. And Spotify has its own quirks too. If you go to the settings here, well, you can set music streaming quality, which is good because you couldn't do that to start with, but you can't download music. So you have to stream it. If you lose signal, you might lose your music. So that's annoying. Now let's try this. Let's try the Beatles in here and hit enter. Artist, the Beatles. Okay, cool. We'll select that. Right, we've got top tracks and now we've got albums. Okay, so we can now see albums in a box. And that's much more useful. And scroll down and find the one we want. So let's try this. First album. Right, we're going to listen to the first song. Okay, we're on the first song. Great. And we can click up here. Oh no, where have I gone? All right, yeah, back to that. Good. And there we go, track listing. So yes, it works. It's fairly intuitive. Slightly better, I'd say, than using YouTube Music. But YouTube Music does allow you to do some offline saving. So they kind of need to work on these apps. They're not perfect, but they could be a lot better in the future. So how do you get more apps? Now, it's down here. The middle one takes you to the Google Play Store. And again, I'm signed in on this using my account. So this is me up here. These 3 little dots. You got my apps, account, settings, various different things. Oh, this stuff's quite boring because it's mainly just technical stuff. But this is where you have your apps to download. So it gives you some recommendations. Now this is quite nice. Tidal is a fairly new app. That wasn't there to begin with. I used to have a Tidal subscription for basically higher quality audio streaming. I don't know what it's like on here because I don't have a subscription to that anymore, but it's available, which is good. You've got explore all apps is probably the best option. Now this is the real disappointment at the moment, is there are hardly any apps available. This is the entire list. It's mainly radio, a few music streaming apps and some podcast kind of stuff, but that's it, nothing else. Now, the problem is there aren't that many cars with this automotive feature. So really what we kind of need is more manufacturers to be using it and more app developers to think it's worth their time to prepare the apps for this. Because if you think about it, the options are endless. You could have Waze on here, for example, but you could also go a little further than that. You could have apps that show you data. So like, you know, Scan My Tesla, you have to plug in to the Tesla on the OBD port, things like that. And that's cool. But I think it would be amazing if, and this is only if Polestar allow developers to access the data, but maybe someone could create an app that would show things like battery temperature. So it wouldn't necessarily be down to Polestar to create the app to do that, but if someone else could do it and Polestar were willing to let that functionality be available to developers, there's a lot of stuff that could be created that could be really, really useful in a car like this. And maybe in the future we could see apps that only work, for example, when you're stopped and you're not moving, like YouTube to watch videos, Netflix perhaps to watch while you're charging. The only downside is the screen orientation is not perfect for video, but it still would be nice to have it there. And it wouldn't be a problem. There are other cars that have that, like Tesla. So yeah, there's a lot of scope for improvement in the future. So I mentioned already the user manual. It's not working properly in my car at the moment. If I select anything, I just get this blank white screen. So I don't know if that's the same for other people, but it's a shame because it should be working. Like, that's one of the key features of having a user manual on a tablet, is that you can access it and use it. So down at the bottom left, we have the full-on settings menu. So this is the usual Google stuff. We can connect our mobile data on and off, and our Wi-Fi. We've got Wi-Fi preferences to turn it on and off automatically. So you could park in your driveway, for example, and select one of these Wi-Fi settings and use that instead of your 4G. But I've got good 4G where I live, so I haven't really bothered with that. My Wi-Fi is actually quite bad in the driveway. Bluetooth, again, this is where you would pair devices and control your Bluetooth settings. Now the sound page is actually more interesting perhaps than many of the others. The sound experience lets you control whether or not it's calibrated or optimized for the driver, all seats, or for the rear seat passengers. And if it's all seats, you can turn on and off the front and the back. But I like to drive around with it on the driver setting because that, to be honest, does make a big difference. I think if you're sitting in the driver's seat, it sounds a lot nicer set to driver. Tone and equalization. You can control treble, bass, subwoofer, and then you've got an advanced EQ. Now, I found this page to be a little bit weird. It doesn't provide as much control as you might expect. Like, I would think that if you turn the subwoofer or the bass up and down, the range of control would be significant, but it's actually quite small. So and this isn't a bad idea on their part, but Harmon Kardon have set this up so you can't really wreck the sound too much. It's more a tweak to give you the kind of sound that you might like, rather than be able to mess around with it like you would on on a traditional amplifier or something like that, where you could turn the treble down so much that it would sound really weird. You can't do that in the car. It's quite subtle changes even when you do move these sliders significantly. And finally, we've got volumes. So this lets you control your volumes of the different settings. So you can hear them. So it can turn up or down. Actually, I find the notification sound kind of noisy. So yeah, so these features are good, being able to control the sound of all of those things. Then we've got display. Trip computer. So this controls what features you can turn on and off on your main driver display. You can say take away average energy consumption, and you could put on average energy consumption for the trip instead of the manual one. So you can just swap a few of these things around. Select up to 2 trip settings to be shown on the driver display. So yeah, that's cool. Actually, under display settings, there are some things that we should see here that we don't. And I mean by should, as in Polestar should have, these should be there as standard features. The display can be way too bright, especially when you're in the Google Maps. So say, for example, you go to Google Maps, look how bright that is. If you're driving in semi-low light conditions where it hasn't switched over to night mode, it will be really, really bright. And lots of people have mentioned this to Polestar. Now, at night, you have the little wheel on the right-hand side of the steering wheel that will turn up and down the brightness of everything at night, but that doesn't do anything during the day. So what we really should have under this display setting is to be able to turn on and off a night mode. So basically that would say the display would be in dark themed mode perhaps all the time, or be able to just control the brightness of the display, or perhaps have an in-between where it's not super bright, like pure, it's always so white, the Google Maps display. And I hope the Polestar do add that feature on in the future. Assistance and voice input. This is to do with how you interact with Google, and you can control a few different things there. And then apps and notifications. We've got just how Google Assistant interacts with your apps there again. And then you've got app permissions, for example. This is complicated stuff. This is, you know, if you get down into the menus on any kind of smartphone, you tend to see this kind of permissions-based information. But yeah, this is it's standard Google stuff. So you could have a look, for example, at your notifications on and off, your permissions within Google Maps. And you can shut down apps from here as well. Privacy and data sharing. In this, you've got, again, this is the same kind of legal stuff you see on phones these days about location, permissions, things like that, privacy settings. There's so much of it, but it's not... like, for example, adaptive cruise control, you know, it's got... So when you activate this function, the following data is processed: forward-facing camera, forward-facing radar, and geolocation. So it just tells you what it's doing with all of this stuff. Does it say the road sign? Yeah, geolocation from the GNSS and forward-facing camera. That's really interesting, actually, seeing that, because it feels like when you're driving that it's actually just using the forward-facing cameras, because I don't see how it gets it so wrong. If it's using global navigation and GPS systems, then it should be more accurate. So let's hope that that's something that Polestar improve with software updates in the future. And then we'll go down to the next Google stuff down here. Again, well, yeah, we got...
Sorry, I don't understand.
What? I did not ask for that. But I did say Google, so I think it confused it. But there you go. So you got, yeah, more Google-based settings in that menu. And down here in the system, this gets even deeper into the menus. But you've got, yeah, things like language and input. You can change that. You can change your date and time and how that operates. You can change your clock format, for example. Network provided time versus your own. Units, you can change that here for metric, imperial, US, miles, kilometers, temperature. So yeah, that's important, because if you're going somewhere else, you want to go, say, to Europe from the UK or coming over, then you can switch these settings in this menu. And this is system-based stuff. So I covered this in the previous video, actually, about the over-the-air updates. This is where you would be able to have a look and see what your current, your build number and your date is in the About page. Storage, this will tell you how much storage space is being taken up by other apps. System updates. So this is where, yeah, this is where you'll be able to check for updates. The system is up to date. At the moment, I don't have any control over this, so that's just, it is what it is, but that's where that updating will be. We've got reset options for various things that need to be reset, and then down at the bottom we've got legal information. And I think that pretty much covers the settings page. So I think that covers almost the entire tablet now between these two videos. One thing I didn't mention is long press on this button down here at the bottom will reset the whole thing. So if it all goes wrong and you have some weird stuff happening, you can, even while you're driving, you can do this. You can press and hold it, and it just resets the tablet and the display behind the driver without doing anything to the actual functionality of the car. And I've used that once or twice, I think, to just reset it to get the 4G back up and running if you lose that. And the last thing to mention, I think, is this swipe up brings up your page like that. So you can either press this or you can swipe in order to get the climate information. So I hope that was useful, and the overview of how the Android Automotive system works in the Polestar 2. Yeah, I covered the apps, the functionality, some of the limitations, some of the things I'd like to see. So yeah, I hope it's been a useful couple of videos, and if you could like and subscribe down below, that would be really great, and I'll be back with another video very soon. Thank you.